Welcome back, everyone. I wanted to start this session with a shout out to all the men who are attending the Women's Forum this year. I want you to please raise your hands, all the men who are attending. And why not attend? Maybe there's something about that apostrophe S between women's and forum that makes some men think twice, but certainly not all men. When I was packing to come here, my 11-year-old son came in and asked me where I was going. When I told him I was going to the Women's Forum, he didn't even hesitate to ask me if I could come too. And then he watched me very closely to see how I would react to that. Yesterday afternoon, one of our speakers mentioned a new campaign that was launched just a couple of weeks ago at the UN by Emma Watson called He for She. This is an interesting campaign because it aims to engage 1 billion men and boys in the fight for women's equality. If you haven't seen the video of her making the speech, I highly recommend it. This next session brings together men and women leaders to talk about this and consider this together. It's a very interesting session in that it's building on a meeting of the CEO champions that happened earlier today. And I know that some of those CEO champions are here. Could I just ask you to stand up if you were at the meeting so we could see who was at the meeting? I know I have a few here, but there might be some in other places. Thank you all very much for coming. This session is called Promoting Best Practice from Deauville to the European Commission. And in it we have a very interesting panel. It's going to be moderated by Baroness Mary Goudie. She's a member of the UK House of Lords. She's going to be having a conversation with a number of CEOs and chiefs. Philippe Castagnac among them, CEO of the Mazars Group. Michel Landel, Group CEO of Sodexo. And Anne-Gabrielle Heilbrunner, General Secretary and member of the Directoire of the Publicis Group. Could I invite our speakers and our moderator to the stage, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming and waiting to hear us. We had an excellent meeting today. We've agreed a number of issues that I'll discuss in just a moment, but the main thing is that we've agreed to keep working between now and the next forum in Deauville, we hope, next year. So we hope that we'll have a lot of initiatives to speak to you about next year and that we will have been able to take some progress forward. Amongst the issues and initiatives that we agreed today was one that is very close to my heart, is that we're going to encourage cross-mentoring across companies and across countries for men and women. Because to achieve what we want to do, men and women have to work together to accelerate the pace of women's empowerment in the business sector. And this is a business issue, and that's why we have 3 CEOs here today to answer questions. One of the other things that we discussed very closely too was the whole question, besides women's empowerment and how we deal with that, there is also the whole question, and this is an issue that needs to be respected and brought in as well, is the LBJTI section. We really feel quite strongly that as we're looking at ourselves, we also ought to be assisting those people. Because with men, and I can say this, they have no problem in coming out. But there's a whole number of women who haven't yet had that courage. And I think it's important that we recognize that fact. Now, I'd like to ask Anne-Gabrielle to talk about how she sees the work that her company is doing and how she can encourage other companies to do that they work with around the issues that we discussed this morning.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. Well, the idea I wanted to share today is not like a big initiative, bright idea, etc., but it's actually a task for all of you. All of us here, but also all of you in the room. We all know that there are unconscious bias, and the best way to fight against them is to realize that all of our actions can have an impact. So whenever there is a recruitment, whether it be internal or external, check that you have male and female candidates and our female candidacies are properly assessed. When you put in place some kind of training programs for high potentials, check that you are not just choosing people in their 30s when women might have problems due to maternity leaves and be maybe less selected. When you put in place salary raise, LTIP, all of these small events in the day of your teams and yourself, always check for equality between men and women. And when you choose a team to meet with a client, I remember it was not in Publicis, it was in my previous job as an investment banker. One of my clients once said to me, I don't want to meet a team of Hugo Boss models. I don't want to meet with an army of clones. I want women. I want diversity. So think before you select a team to meet with a client.
Thank you, Gabrielle. I would now like to turn to Michelle to talk about where the leadership comes to develop the whole pipeline and how that leadership has to come and how you would deal with that. You have a very large company and also how you encourage other people to do this. You are a real role model.
Well, I think the first thing it takes passion and conviction. Not only because, it's the right thing to do for ethical, reasons, but it's the right thing to do to have a more innovative, a more, engaged, and a more performing company. Because it's all about performance, right? So it is difficult. It's a difficult journey. It takes time, but it takes a lot of determination and, a lot of patience to engage your organization and primarily engage your executive team and make of them, true leaders and also true ambassadors, to engage the rest of the team. It's absolutely fundamental. And then, you have to decide to invest and, build the building blocks of your, strategy, which starts, with the governance, with the training program, how you raise awareness, how you build these programs, this mentoring and sponsoring program, how do you transform your organization in terms of processes, recruitment, flexibility, all this. And for that, you never have to give up. You have to be very determined and lead by example, And when I transformed my executive committee 8 months ago, I moved from a 25% representation to 43% representation. And that was the result, of 10 years of a lot of work from my teams. And, this makes a big difference because having 43% of women in an executive committee, it changed completely the dynamic. And the other thing is that, we have 38% representation of women in our board of directors, which is also, very inspiring. And the last thing I wanted to tell is that you have to, when you do this, during this journey, you really have to hold people accountable and measure. Because at the end, what gets measured gets done. And, not only measure, your KPIs, but also, try to measure what is the impact on your performance. And that's what we've been able to do recently, and measure our ability to drive, client satisfaction, client retention, engagement of people, and ultimately the financial performance through gender balance.
I think many of you have read last week a report that came out by Credit Suisse that said that companies that had women in senior positions, that their profits had gone up considerably. Coming on from that, I'd like Philippe to talk to us about auditing and measuring, as measuring has been a great subject at this conference, and auditing we discussed this morning, and measuring.
So auditing, thank you for the question, Mary. But of course, for issuing an audit report, we need rules. Is that national rules, international rules, or global rules? So we have not. So we could not be able to issue any audit report on this. But what we can do, and I'm sure that on the first rank here, you have most of my female partners, French female partners, and they are excited on the fact that you propose to create a new business line for us. And I take the advantage to underline this. What could it be? Just to be around upon agreed processes to assess the improvement from one year to another according, not rules, because we have not global rules, but around charters, internal charters of the companies, or some of the documents or guidance that could be provided by the companies in itself. So for sure, the measurement of this according to audit or close to audit, which would be an opinion according to agreed upon processes, is possible. And we probably could introduce this in the book of services that we have.
I don't remember we had a consensus on that.
Maybe not, but we can do it when we are not auditors, you know, in different clients. But I would be happy to do it in Publicis.
In the United Kingdom, all the FTSE 100 companies, as part of their audit and reporting, have to report on women on boards, where their women are as they come through to senior level, and also on the gender pay gap on what they're paying. And this is really this has now been in place, we're coming to the third year, and this is really making a difference. And I'm hoping very much that other countries will take this on, or that companies, global companies, because they see they have to do this in the UK, would think that they should be doing it elsewhere. And Gabrielle, let's just hear your view on this, because I know you feel quite strongly about it.
No, I mean, you know, we are very lucky in Publicis because our board is equally composed of men and women, and because it has been chaired by Elisabeth Badinter since 1996. And we have a whole culture of respect, diversity. Our mantra is Viva la différence. So we have the feeling that we are already a very women-friendly organization. Although we know that we lose some experienced women, and we have to act against that. So we've created a network, Viva Women, which is perfectly consistent with our DNA, our culture. Because we are cost-conscious, it's inexpensive. Because we are decentralized, it's built from bottom up, from the agencies. And because we value entrepreneurship spirit, it's based on the willingness of the women in our organization and also the men to participate, to commit, and to share. And one of the key actions is mentoring. And I'm very glad that this was one of the actions on which the CEOs thought that we could work together with cross-mentorship, because this is something we've done in Publicis Group and which is very successful.
Coming on from that, Michelle, we talked this morning about passion, but also, as Gabrielle's talking, you've talked about your companies, and we'll come to Philippe in a moment, that the sustainability of all the work that you have done over the past period, we want that to stay, and we want the new people to build on that. So say how that's going to happen in your companies, because this is so important, and by example.
Well, I think it goes through what you just said, through really implementing these programs. You know, there is no magic bullet here. We really have to implement what we have developed and be very persistent and consistent with the objective that we have, all of us, because, you know, I've been in this forum for many, many years. I come every year. I learn a lot, right? But what I've learned at the end is that, you know, I don't see a lot of new programs coming up, to be honest. What I see is that the companies who are successful are the ones who are committed and who are persistent and who never give up. I really believe it's all about that.
I agree, and it's about best practice and encouraging other people to best practice. Now, coming from what you do, which you have a tremendous reputation in your company, about how do you think you can encourage companies to do this? And then I'm going to throw it open for a few questions.
So if my experience of what I see in the different clients I have or within Mazars is to be, as Michel said, extremely committed, not only at the top, CEO's position is one thing, but if you have not from the COOs or for the head of divisions or of subsidiaries the same commitment and the same actions on a day-to-day practice, it will not move. So that's what the experience we have is that when you have a plan that is really managed by the top management and the intermediary management, then you have progresses. And your first question was about how do we measure at Mazars. Just 10 years ago, when we started with the Women's Forum and the diversity issues within Mazars, nominating a head for diversity, we were probably 500 partners or less. And we are now more than 750. And when I see the evolution, it was less than 7% 10 years ago of female partners. Now it is 14. Of course I'm not happy with this, because 14 is not much. But if you have, as you said, to fill the pipe before nominating new partners, it's a long journey. And so we have probably one more decade to get the 20% of partners, which is not enough, once again, but it's progress. And then we can measure over years what we do according to a plan. And if this is really designed and well followed and committed, it works.
It'll be sustainable. Now, who else would like to ask a question of my great friends here? Does anybody like to ask a question? There must be somebody who's wishing to ask something about the future of business and women on boards. Is that? Oh, please ask. It's behind you.
Thank you. Rama Rajji from United States Press Agency. After the crisis, yesterday there was another panel that was speaking a lot about the business in future and the problem of unemployment. Before that, we were speaking about globalization in the 2000s. Now we're speaking about the after crisis, which is the consequence of the financial collapse of 2008. Nowadays, the problem about employment and matching the skills and the job market is get to be an issue. Maybe one of you can maybe give me an idea about the business model of the actual now business model that is maybe reaching its limits, and if it's too old-fashioned, do we have to change the business model of the job market globally? Thank you.
I'm not sure I understand the question well, but I believe that there is the crisis is still there, and actually the world is changing very fast, but it will take a lot of time to recover. Sorry? Between two crises. Yeah, and I believe that one of the things that we know is that when you look at the population today, 60% of college graduates are women, right? And I think that that's a very important number. And when you look at what's happening in the organization, it's not the representation, right? So I believe that there is a huge opportunity for companies and organizations to develop, to make their companies more inclusive, to attract this fantastic workforce. And I think this is the opportunity that all companies have today, right?
This is our time. Who else would like to ask a question? Thank you very much. Over this side.
Mr. Castagnac, I'm Anita Kassan from Nestle Waters. Why do you think it will take 10 years to go from 7 to 14% representation of females in your management?
I think we need to be consistent with what we implement. And of course, the experience we had of the 10 last years is that it's slow. The process is slow, too slow, much too slow. So we have to react and to act to make it faster, but to be realistic.
Who would like to follow on from that? Who else has another question? We've only got a few more minutes. Who else would like to ask one more question? I'm sure that these three are very provoking, so somebody must have. I can't believe they've answered all the questions.
This is a man asking a question. Why not?
We need you.
This is not going to make me popular, but we just launched an initiative in London, in the UK market.
Which company are you?
This is Egon Zender, search firm.
Yes.
And it's called 2025. So what we've said is that today we have 5 female CEOs in the FTSE 100. And we have said, let's have a vision. But it will probably, according to the group, not be bold enough. That by 2025, we will have 25 female CEOs in the FTSE 100. And we, as Egon Zender, commit ourselves to work towards achieving that goal.
Great. And getting the right people on the shortlist is quite important.
But let me just add to that.
And finding the people, too.
For the last, I think, 20 years, the figure has been 5% of executive females in companies. It's very, very low, and it's stagnant at 5% for about 20 years. In the US, it's been stagnant for 30 years. So we're not talking about a small problem here that we're trying to solve.
Anne Gabrielle?
No, just maybe to react, I think that this is a great initiative, and for all of our young female colleagues, the fact to have a CEO or women on very top senior positions is great. And it's the opportunity to show that women can deliver as well as men, and that they can access the higher responsibility. So I think it's great. I do not think that progress are slow. I did agree with you on that. On the contrary, I think that we've made an enormous progress. I was referring to Sophie Germain during a previous workshop. She was a mathematician in France, beginning of the 19th century, and she had to pretend she was a man to be able to follow courses in mathematics. So see us today. See the progress we've all made.
Michelle, how would you like to take that forward too?
Well, I'm very optimistic, right? Because I think companies are changing, frankly, and the awareness, the level of awareness is changing. And when you get, a certain level, then you see an acceleration. And when you see what's going on in this room, right? I think there is a lot of potential. So I really believe that if, as private companies, as international organizations, as NGOs, as government institutions, we all put our efforts together, I really believe we can move that. And it really, we can do it, I really do think so.
And we know that there are cultural difficulties across Europe and across the divide, but despite all of these things, I think this is achievable. Philippe, you work across all these divides.
Yes, absolutely, and we believe that this, as you say, this is achievable with the commitment of all the actors around this issue. And I definitely believe that the progresses that we made in the past, globally and internally in the different companies we spoke about, are very promising.
Is there anybody else who'd like to ask a question? Because we like audience participation. The lady here. Was there somebody? Yes? Where are they? Oh. Thank you.
I just wanted to know, my name is Dana from the Renault-Nissan Alliance, and I wanted to know what characteristics or what experiences should younger women, middle management, have to prepare to be considered for board membership?
That's a very important question. And Gabrielle?
Why me?
Because you're so good.
You're the more senior in the room.
No. Well, I think what it takes is mentoring, sponsoring, and also confidence. And I think everyone can make it. My experience is that in my company, when I see the incredible success of the people, because we are, our philosophy is to grow people from within, who reach top jobs, I think everyone can do it. It's just a question of confidence, and also, I believe that for men, it is a world's man, a man's world, right? It is a man's world. And what we are doing here is we're transforming that world to become a more woman and more balanced world, right? And I really believe that that is a fantastic opportunity. And we, as men, had sponsors. I think it is extremely important that for women, the sponsorship grows and take off, because I think we all need that, right?
Absolutely key. And Gabrielle, you like to say a few words?
I was just thinking that what we try to do now is to work on engagement. And working on engagement means bringing some support to our staff, whether they be male or female. And that this, I think the women will benefit from that. And this is really what we do, we try to do, and what all of our companies should do. Because you know that recent studies have shown that only 30% of the workforce of our companies is engaged, is really engaged. So working on that, bringing support, bringing the necessary means, listening to people, and doing our best to have them grow and be successful. This is the recipe.
And then Philippe, asking you a question to add to it, is that now we live in a technology age, that more working from home, this should help enormously, and companies should be encouraged to have agile working. And this is one of the recommendations of the CEO champions today.
Absolutely right, Mary. And we said that flexibility or part-time or working at home is something that has to be proposed and considered, because for probably better results than we have when the people is still going to the office for being in the office. So this is a move, this is on, and as you said, I'm really much more optimistic than 5 years before, because I think that we have seen a lot of progress, and what we heard this morning at the CEO's committee was extremely positive in terms of move. So we should be really optimistic on this.
I'd like to thank my three friends for our conversation this afternoon and for you listening to us. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you to our CEO.